A small change, a smaller sustainability innovation will help a little bit with growth, but the bigger and bolder you are, the greater the returns will be.
How do you make the case that this is good for the company?
Ultimately, it has to be, a top-down, bottom-up sort of embrace of the trend.
By definition, a sustainable product that uses less resources should cost less.
You have to be accepting of failure, and you can't dig too deep into the pennies or you won't go forward.
Is it something your customers said, I must have plastic bottles in my jeans, otherwise I'm not buying your brand?
Since we're very consumer-facing, it is really about engaging with our consumers, and we know that the millennial consumer today, they're not going to buy jeans because it's more sustainable, they're going to buy jeans because it makes their butt look good, right? That's why you buy jeans. But if we can make it sustainable, guess what? It helps us differentiate. It's made with a process that uses up to 96% less water. So we're building sustainability innovation into the product so the consumer gets a better product, but they also help the planet and they help the people who make it.
How do you make the case that this is good for the company?
Ultimately, it has to be, a top-down, bottom-up sort of embrace of the trend. And the trend within our industry that we actually preach is sustainability. And it is waste diversion, it is material conversion technology and waste to energy and all these kinds of things. Some of our competitors don't necessarily believe that, that's okay. So I mean, I think that's kind of a first step. And the next step is that you have to make a business case for it. So it's, certain technologies in a state like California may not be bankable in a state like Ohio, just based on certain regulatory things in place, incentives, and things like that. So, it literally just has to be taken on by a case-by-case basis, which makes adoption slow.
About a year ago, I was researching Chipotle. And, Chipotle, the burrito chain that's also sources its ingredients sustainably, which is kind of heresy. It has much more expensive raw ingredients than your classic fast food company. I realized that Chipotle had revenues in the order of like $2.8 billion annual revenues, and that's billion with a B. And they'd actually overtaken Burger King in terms of annual revenues. And I couldn't quite believe it. Even though I've been working in the sustainability field myself for 7 years and I'm very passionate about it, I was kind of floored by this finding. And I thought, I wonder if there are other companies out there that have been able to generate $1 billion or more in annual revenue from innovations or business lines that are fundamentally oriented around sustainability. And I went on to find a further 9 companies, including GE, Nike, and others. So first of all, that finding alone was fascinating to me, that there was $1 billion revenue opportunity in sustainability, because I think we often think that the opposite is true, that sustainability is going to be a drain on the business, that it's going to be an expense and a cost, not a driver of growth. So in and of itself, I found this sort of $1 billion thing quite exciting. And I started to look at what these companies have in common. And, I'm writing a book, so I found the 6 factors. And it includes, there's an iconoclastic leader in every case. There's somebody who's driving this change through the organization for whom it is personal. And obviously that's true, we've heard today, in a lot of innovation. In this case, it's somebody who's a little contrarian. They're kind of prepared to go out there on a limb and say, hey, I know that I'm flouting conventional business wisdom, and I'm okay with that because I believe this is going to work. What these guys have in common in terms of their innovation, there are many things, but one of the things I think is fascinating is they haven't approached sustainability as a driver of efficiency, as a way to sort of derive savings, although they do that. They've really approached it as a way to revolutionize the category. And they've approached it not as just making a greener version of something that already exists, but to totally revolutionize and improve that category. So if you think about, for example, Tesla, they weren't just trying to make a slightly greener car. They've completely transformed the automotive industry. If you look at Nike with the Flyknit shoe, it isn't just a slightly greener shoe, it's a new way to make shoes. And so in each of the cases, there is this level of disruption. And in fact, there are some Harvard professors who found that a small change, a smaller sustainability innovation will help a little bit with growth, but the bigger and bolder you are, the greater the returns will be. So you can actually start to see that, contrary to the sort of prevailing wisdom, which is that sustainability is going to depress your business and depress your growth, that some of these companies have cracked that code and are really using it to open up huge new streams of revenue for themselves.
I think you have to have a balance. It's somewhat gut feel. You have to have some measure, because in any corporation you have to have a goal, and if you don't have the goal, you're not going to get anything done. But if you try to get down to the pennies, you're wasting too much time on trying to figure out how to measure it, and you wasted all the time you could have just applied it and tried it. In most cases, you can go back. You can try it, and if it doesn't work out, you can back up and try another thing. So you have to be accepting of failure, and you can't dig too deep into the pennies, or you won't go forward.
The whole concept of traceability, the provenance of the product, where it's coming from, way back to the raw material stage, that is going to be a huge demand in the future. We're all seeing it. And for all of you innovators out there, if you can solve that problem, that would be fantastic, right? The biggest challenge for supply chains, global supply chains today, with all of the different levels of suppliers that we have all the way to the origin, have massive amounts of data.
Yes.
So help us solve that problem. Whoever can solve that will,
Agree.
It's the next
that will be a
billion-dollar idea.
fantastic business.